Welcome to my podcast. It is the first one of the year, and there's no better guest I would more like to have sitting in this room with me than my darling husband, Geordie.
It's great to be here with a podcast looking perhaps forward to the coming year and over one or two of the things we've enjoyed last year.
I think we're following the god Janus, for whom January was named, whose face was, he was double-faced, looking backwards and forwards. And I sometimes think if you can look backwards, you perhaps might understand a little bit where you're going. But it is a deeply muddly world at the moment. But we have to somehow find moments of optimism, I think.
We do, yes. The gods of weather have been a challenge over the last year. And of course, recently, in a big way for many of us in the UK, we all struggled a bit. And hopefully things will be calmer in the coming year.
It'd be lovely to have a very warm summer. So I think there's a list of things we would love and pray for. But I think for many of those who are listening, there's some glad tidings of great joy from the past Christmas with the fact that there was a new third Downton Abbey film made, which in fact was made in the summer of 2024 and is going to be coming to our screens in September of 2025. And it was made amidst slightly mixed weather, but overall they managed to also shoot some outside scenes.
And we were really looking forward to when this movie comes out next early autumn too.
I think what's special about the Downton films is it's a real family film. And if you're 9 years old or a teenager or somewhat older than that or 90 years old, it can give whole families such pleasure. And that is rare itself in any film, which tend to be a little bit more violent or a little bit less appropriate for children as well as grandparents. So I think that is unique about the Downton film. And I think that most of the cast of characters are coming back. But I hope everybody goes to the cinema to find out what is going to happen. And of course, the second film came out during COVID, didn't it?
It did. I remember we were all tested pretty well practically every day, which was a bit of a challenge amongst all the other things we were contending with during that very difficult time. But that was a sad time for many. But again, positive things happen, and the Downton movie coming will cheer us all up.
But in the near future, in the springtime, of course, I think we've planted turning to the gardens and our desire to see some colour after the brown twigs, which are everywhere on the trees and all the shrubs. So more colour in the gardens, and that's your time-lapse planting, which I'm really proud of.
Yes, we've had much fun out of a partnership with Michael Lubber and his clever machine for planting bulbs that literally start in February, March and go all the way into May, bringing us glorious colour across swathes of quite wild-looking planted areas of bulbs all across our wild garden, really.
And it's the word of goodwill is what we call it. Like we all need goodwill. And there's crocus and wild tulips, camassia, alliums, fritillaria. And there's those tiny, is it Chinopsidia?
Yes, there's little tiny blue flowers. These were some anemones as well. It is actually a feast of colour across our wildgrass area. And it is just a joy of the start of spring.
I think people, I hope, will come just to see that. And meanwhile, the wildflower meadow in front of it is then covered with cowslips. And every year they become more in greater number, somehow brighter in colour. And again, a joy to see. And around the edge of that, there's some little primroses, Geordie, now, which is so cute.
Yes, the primroses, there's something special about our ecology here, because the primroses just love it as much as the cowslips, and they're growing all over the place. So that's another element of completely wild spring colour effect, which again is one of the glories of nature, really.
I know you mentioned your mother, but one of the things you and I have done is create a garden in her memory for Lady Jeannie, obviously, and that's what rather wonderful. And it starts from nothing. It started in its infancy, looking as if I would almost give up with it, but we persevered. And actually, at the moment, it's still looking good with the texture of the different plants and flowers. And it's on a bank, and it faces west, which was what I wanted it to do, Geordie, because obviously she came from Wyoming. So if you went west far enough and kept on going, you would end up in Wyoming.
Sure enough, yes, there's parallels. I mean, it was a chalky, rather bare bank where the bunnies were in competition with everything the rabbits, but we managed to really move things on, and there's some great colours there, some of which you will find in alpine areas of the mountains of Wyoming, where my beloved mum grew up near Sheridan, Wyoming.
And I'd like to put some large pots there and fill them with some of the Indian paint flowers, which I think would grow in the pots. But I haven't quite got as far as that. And increasingly, I'm putting ever more lupins in there because neither rabbits nor deer like lupins. And they do seem to like that soil and that part of the gardens. So they seem to have a long flowering time, and they've become one of my best friends and favourite flowers at the moment.
Yes, the thorny but very scented roses, the very colourful penstemon, a bunch of different geraniums and things. They all work well on that chalky back soil, and I think my mum would have really loved all the colour we've created.
Oh, I do hope so. There's pastel colours, blues and whites and some pinks, because those were the colours that she preferred, whereas I know that you and your pa and your grandpa, in fact, were quite keen on some of the brighter colours which are reflected more in the secret gardens.
Yes, the secret gardens got some rather hotter shades of red and occasional orange, but also those glorious tall white lilies and that kind of thing too, which is always good contrast.
One of the projects we carried out last year, 2024, was we completed the peach house, which used to have roses at the front of it and peaches against the wall at the back. And we've lost many of the hybrid tea roses. So I think that is a joy for you and I to begin to choose some and buy some and pot them up, Geordie. So I thought that was something we could pursue in the early months of this year.
They definitely, because there was always the sort of slightly falling down and dilapidated past version of the wonderful peach house. The hybrid tea roses had all their scents, and they're great big blousy coloured flowers. They were something fun every summer to be in there. And I think we've lost that a bit since all the repairs. So we need to get them working again.
That is a really joyful project. And at the back, I think the metal house and the carnation houses are still standing quite well, despite all the winter storms of the past November and December. So I hope spring treats us slightly more lightly. And I know we've cleared up some of the big cedar trees and some of the boughs that have come down, but I'm hoping spring will be, slightly more gentle, eddying.
Yes, we love the majesty of those wonderful cedars of Lebanon, which are the iconic tree in Highclere Park and around the eastern side, especially of the castle. And we have lost one or two limbs in the high winds over the last few days, but not too much. And I think the young ones that we planted after the January 90 storm, which is some 30 years old, they actually survived quite well, so I'm quite pleased about it.
And yet I think there's one branch that has come down, but hopefully the rest of the tree will survive. And as we go through January and February at this time of year, we have guided tours, which are small numbers of guests, so we can welcomely shelter everybody in the castle and out of any inclement weather. And there can be some wonderful cosy guided tours, which I hope people will enjoy, including Valentine's days. And with the springtime tours, we're moving on both outside, but we've introduced some new costume exhibitions I thought would be quite fun. Not costumes, strictly speaking, because they are vintage dresses, and we're emptying our robing room on the top floor of the castle to share with all of our guests who come through at that time some of the dresses and the style that those who are living here might have actually worn before we open to the general admissions in spring and Easter and our Easter egg tours. That I'm also looking forward to, but I think I need to take it slowly through each of the days of winter. Is there anything you're looking forward to?
The wonderful thing about Highclere is there are little special treasures like dresses and things we can show people. There's something somewhere to discover in this great old building. And of course, you're involved in farming. You have to be optimistic about the next season and harvest, even if season with all the rain, harvest was not so exciting. So planted quite reasonably well this autumn. So fingers crossed that begins to work for some more friendly weather next spring. And of course, oats are a key crop for us, feeding our friends in the performance horse world. And even a small amount of oats goes into every batch of production of our Highclere Castle gin, which of course makes it so smooth.
I know, and it's going from strength to strength. I can't remember how many platinum and gold awards our gin has won now. Do you know at all?
It's just over 170 in the United States.
Oh, it's over 200.
Well, maybe I'm slightly behind, but I've been sort of looking through the list. The list's grown rather long. Can't be too long for me, but it's an amazing honour for a new gin to be so awarded and so honoured over the last few years. And actually, because of our connection with the horse world, we've had some fun sponsoring a race at Salisbury that my grandfather created and a race at Newbury that my father created.
It's a lovely joining together of those two legacies, isn't it? And then at sea, of course, Viking Cruises are serving Highclere Castle gin as part of Silver Package, which is simply wonderful. And people are then going home and ordering it in Florida and all over America. So that's very exciting too. And they've got some wonderful cocktails that we've created and curated on some of their different ocean ships. So I'm quite excited by that. I get some lovely comment.
Wow. I think cheers went up more than a great cocktail to start the evening gathering off. It's certainly a boost to morale.
I might need a boost to morale today, but anyway. Do you want to try? You can always try and make me Negroni, Geordie.
Wine.
It'd be really good. So there's the gin. And then I suppose later on this year, we're going to have our second Highclere Castle garden party, which will be wonderful. I thought I might even write a little script and see if any of those who are coming along might want to try their hand at acting, which I thought might be quite fun. You might have to join the fray on that, Geordie.
I think I have occasionally joined the fray on faster weekends where we moved into little mini scenes that might have come from the Downton era.
Precisely. So I thought we might try that again and have a reason to celebrate in June. And then, of course, the next Downton Abbey film comes out in this country, I think, on the 12th of September, which will be exciting. And perhaps we can think about where some of those scenes were set to make sure people are really embedded in what actually happened here. And the weekend before that, we're going to have our Heroes at Highclere to raise money for those who serve and save, with some planes in the air and cars on the ground and dancing and singing and whatever we can bring together, Geordie.
Then the planes from World War I and World War II in the air and classic cars and everything. They have a lot of memories and information and education of those special past years.
Absolutely, Geordie. And I think to raise money for those who serve and save, whether they live in this country, and I know we support a charity in America, TAPS, and Médecins Sans Frontières, which is a very different charity, which goes in when most of us are running away. So I hope we will draw a large crowd for a very entertaining weekend. I'm proud of what we do to support various charities, actually, and the whole team here. It's just amazing how they swing behind it one way or another.
Great things of a glorious place like Highclere is that we have such an incredible, loyal and enthusiastic team of staff who work with us in the community here, and they do really help make those kind of weekends and days run well and give a lot of pleasure to so many people, really. So I give them my heartfelt thanks.
I completely agree, and it's some of this past year has been more than a little challenging with everything that we've all faced, actually, and I think many people throughout the world have faced a huge amount of tragedy and challenges just to keep going. And you keep thinking that things will turn around and get a little bit better. And I think when you start each year, you have to think like that. It can be sometimes quite daunting.
Because at the moment, sadly, there are many challenges and conflicts and difficult times possibly over the next few months. I just hope they're resolved and peace can all move forward, really.
It's always difficult, isn't it, ending a war? They seem rather too easy to start and rather too hard to conclude and end and move towards peace. But sometimes looking back at Highclere, I think that they would have known such challenges from the last 1,300 years. Everybody living here would have had to face down the plague and somehow survive that. Some survived and some had to make their way through that. There were innumerable wars when Edward III was king in France, which must have been quite frightening. And then again, when Elizabeth I was queen, and England was threatened by, in that case, a Spanish armada, which actually the weather defeated. And
but we do have one of the hills where beacons were lit in case of invasion on Beacon Hill.
Yes, we can see.
Over 800 feet above sea level, and you can see, I don't know how many, some like 6 or 7 counties in all directions.
You and John Gandhill always impress the number of counties and make them ever higher. I think it's about 4 counties, Geordie. It's really that.
Robbie True.
Anyway, I can certainly count 4 counties. John says sure he can see Surrey, but I really don't see how he can possibly see Surrey from the top of the tower or from Beacon Hill. But who's going to argue? It doesn't really matter, does it?
It's always fun that the little sign at that 3-legged cross in the very P.G. Woodhouse way says Sussex 63 miles away.
Yes, it does. That was the castle, wasn't it?
Emsworth, sorry.
And then in Jeeves and Worcester, at Highclere Castle was Emsworth, wasn't it?
Oh, no, in the fictional version of Jeeves and Worcester, we were Topley Towers.
I thought we were Topley Towers, sorry. And Stephen Fry and Hugh Laurie must have been the beginning of their career, wasn't it? They've been such British stalwarts of the acting world ever since. So, looking forward, I suppose what I would love you to do is have some winners at Royal Ascot. We can really celebrate with that. We've got 3 of our yearlings being broken in at the moment, and they'll be going off to Richard Hannon.
The greatest thing about horses in training this time of year is that they all potentially have to think that they're swans. Let's be optimistic for a while.
They are wonderful. And then we've got Kaya, who's by Study of Man, who's going to go hopefully back into training.
Our heroine, I think, who's now won 6 times for me at her level, and she just adores competing. And if I could bottle her attitude to competing in races, that would be fantastic.
I think when she comes out of training, we can think very hard about what stallion to send her to, and we can be excited about her progeny, which would be simply wonderful.
Yeah, she's certainly an example of never give up.
She never gives up, and I think your pa would be thrilled, Geordie, that you, like him, are breeding horses and an owner breeder and putting them into training. It's just what he adored. And I can see you poring over all the books and then poring over what races to put what horse to. So at this point in time, everything is hopeful and full of promise, and nothing is consigned to what do we do next. So it's a wonderful time of year for horses. And of course, we're still starting off with 9 dogs. Isn't that exciting?
10. Very exciting. I wonder quite how we manage them, because when you have that many of them, they do become a little bit of a pack when they first venture out in the morning.
They have a lot to say, and Sarah is always busy talking to absolutely everybody. And then I think one of the youngsters rolled Willie, the older spaniel, over this morning. He became covered in mud. And so he was then standing up and looking, I think it happened to me as he from his muddy puddle. It was very funny.
They're all
but he's
characters,
fine.
certainly characters.
They are certainly characters, and they're incredibly loving. And they are definitely part of our lives. What's extraordinary is when I go out and instinctively you somehow know if you're short of one dog for updating.
It's getting them, corralling them all back in the house, with 1 or 2 of the older ones are a bit more on the feeling a little bit of arthritis. It
is, and also they go off and do their own thing, and plain deafness. I think the Labradors are quite fond of the back of where the marquee, where the afternoon tea, there might be some dregs from that. And actually Clemmy, the little brown spaniel, is not averse to the remains of a scone somewhere. But they bring us such joy, and hopefully we will thoroughly enjoy their company for at least some of the next year, although I'm aware the spaniels are now going to be 15, which is quite something.
Amazing.
Well, may we go on from strength to strength with all of Highclere, all of its wonderful community of people, Geordie. It's an amazing house. I feel very lucky to be helping you look after it. And I feel even luckier to have all these amazing people working with it.
Absolutely. Let's
raise a toast.
Raise a toast for a fantastically successful and prosperous year for everyone in 2025.